Sorry about that. Hi, ghouls. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Natalie Megan. This is usually Weirdo Book Club, but today we're switching things up. We're doing Weirdo Watch Club because today we're talking horror movies, okay? Scary movies.
You like scary movies?
Yes. Yes, I do. Thank you for asking. So in this video today, I've got my spooky sweater on, and I'm going to be giving you the movies that I consider mandatory viewing in the horror genre. Now, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway because this is the internet and all bets are off. I'm not proclaiming to be an expert or a voice of authority on this matter. This is just my silly little list of movies that if we were to get a coffee and I was to ask you, hey, have you seen this movie? And you said no, I'd be like, stop what you're doing and do it now. You have to watch this. That's it. Some of these movies may not qualify as horror, or some of your favorites or movies that you think should be on everyone's watch list might not be on this list because we're different. And I know that you know that, and you wouldn't be here if you weren't smart and had great taste. But I digress. Movies are a different monster, and I just want to make sure that we're on the same page as we usually are when I talk about books. I'm not here to say that my list is the list. I'm not here to say what does or doesn't qualify someone as a real horror fan, because I'm pretty sure some people don't think I'm a real horror fan for a variety of reasons, and none of them I can fault them for. From the fact that I can't really look at the screen when something super scary is going on, to the fact that I won't watch a scary movie unless my back is firmly against some sort of wall. You're not sneaking up on me, not on my watch, not in this economy. I haven't seen a lot of the staple classic horror films that people rave about. I don't particularly love or seek out gore, and, I have a lot of nightmares. What are you gonna do? I think colloquially I would be referred to as a wuss, but I'm a wuss that still enjoys the horror genre. And there's no right or wrong way to be a fan of horror, in my opinion. And so I still very much consider myself a fan of horror. And you too, you little stink. I currently have a full list of over 100 titles on my Letterboxd. I made a list of my spooky movie master list. I've whittled it down to a couple that I'm only gonna discuss in video form today because some cuts had to be made or we'd be here all day long. And I know that you want that because we have so much fun together, but I need a nap. Also, just real quick before we get started, if you plan on coming into my comments to actually about some of the titles that I've chosen for this list, that's not really horror, just don't do that. I mean, you can, it's engagement and I love it. We love to see it. I will just bypass it usually, but maybe you'll make some friends along the way. Who knows? These recommendations will not come with spoilers. I will not be spoiling any of the plots or going into details. I will be telling you why I think they're good and giving you a basic summary of the plot. And I will be letting you know currently where these movies are available for streaming if you have a subscription to these platforms. They're available in a lot of different places to rent or buy, but I wanted to let you know because it's October, so I wanted to let you know where you could find them on demand on some of the services you may already have. Okay, we ready? So I broke this down in a way that made the most sense to me, which is chronologically. And I'm going chronologically based on their premiere dates, not when I first watched them. Because I've got some in here from like the 20s, and I'm old, but I was not alive, obviously. We're starting with the classics. And what I mean by classics, anything that came before 1960. I haven't watched a lot of movies that span those decades, but I would love to watch more, so if you have any good recs. So pre-1960, black and white, some of them include like classic, iconic staple movie monsters that really got the ball rolling in this genre. As someone who dressed her entire family up as a little family of classic monsters, it just wouldn't be right to skip over some of these. So let's get started. First, we have Nosferatu, a symphony of horror, which premiered in 1922. So you have to watch this, okay? This is a black and white movie with no audible dialogue. The dialogue is communicated to us through cards that are spliced in between scenes as the cast acts out the movie. The score that's playing behind the film the entire time is incredible. Very spooky, really sets the mood. And aside from all of that, Nosferatu is a terrifying movie monster. He is so scary, with the sharp angles in his face and the shadows and the sunken eyes, the sharp teeth and the long fingers with curved claws. He is so creepy. He even scared me in that one episode of SpongeBob with the hashling slasher. But I'm a wuss, we've already established that. It doesn't matter how old this movie is, it still gives me the creeps, and I watch it every year. Currently, it's available to stream on Prime, Plex, Tubi, Freevee, and the Roku channel. Next, we have Dracula, circa 1931. This is the one that stars Bela Lugosi as Dracula, and he does a great Dracula. But this one has audible dialogue because we are really chugging along technologically. I love the effects. I love the gothic castle setting. I love the haunting visuals of the wives and the coffins and the winding stone staircase. It's just all really cool to me, and it always has been. It's a classic vampire story. You know how I feel about vampires if you've been here for a while, and I watch this one every year too. And you can stream it on Prime if you have a membership. Next up, we have Frankenstein, circa 19 1931. One of my favorites for all times, for many reasons. First of all, the man who played Frankenstein looks a lot like my grandfather. Something about the scowl, you know? This is a movie adaptation of the classic sci-fi story by Mary Shelley that tells of mad scientist Dr. Frankenstein. It's alive! And the monster he created in his lab. A staple watch in my house. I put a lot of these classics on while I'm working. Like, they're just on in the background while I'm doing the laundry or I'm cleaning up around the house because they're great for being spooky and productive. And even though the story in itself is a sci-fi story about the loneliness of man, the movie, I think, really does its job when it comes to horror and setting that kind of a scene. Currently, it's available to stream on Peacock. Now, that's the end of this era, but there are some honorable mentions in these decades, like The Mummy and The Creature from the Black Lagoon and The Wizard of Oz. I know, it's not horror, but it has horror elements and it scared the shit out of me as a kid. Are you trying to tell me that The Flying Monkeys and The Wicked Witch aren't horrifying? Okay. But for now, I'll just let Frankenstein close us out and we will move into the 1960s. A great era of horror, if I'm honest, but it's not a decade that I've spent a lot of time in. The films that I'm going to mention, I adore. I just haven't seen a lot of other ones from the 1960s, and I would like to change that. So there's only two, but they're great. Psycho, circa 1960. My favorite Alfred Hitchcock of the ones of his that I've seen. This film follows a young woman as she stops to stay at a roadside motel just to rest up for the night, and she is met with the now infamous, nice but a little strange front desk clerk, Norman Bates. Anthony Perkins was so unsettling in this role as Norman Bates, and I still, to this day, check behind my shower curtain whenever I'm in the bathroom or in the house alone, just because of how creepy he was in this movie. And because you just literally never know. You can stream it on Netflix, and I think you should. Do it. Next, we have Night of the Living Dead, circa 1968. Night of the Living Dead, I just love. It was revolutionary for the genre in a variety of ways. It modernized the idea of the zombie, which in my opinion made it a lot more scary because what are you doing here? This is a Wendy's.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
But it also had a black man as a lead, and it had a lot of like gore, which was pretty intense for the time. Like now it's like, you know, it's black and white. It can only be so disturbing because our sensitivity has been lowered over time as things have gotten more and more graphic. And I actually have this movie on VHS somewhere in the attic. I don't know where it is. And I've loved zombies ever since. It's available to stream on Freevee, AMC Plus, Max, Peacock, Plex, Roku, and Tubi, just to name a few. There's a couple others that I didn't know about, but there's plenty of options out there. Ugh, it's too warm in this house for this spooky sweater. Gotta go. Okay, that was it for the 60s. I'm sorry if that was disappointing, but like I said, I just haven't spent a lot of time in that decade. If you have recs for me, I would appreciate them. Leave them below. So now we move on to the 70s, which is another great decade with great recs. I've seen a few more from this decade because naturally this is getting closer to the time I hopped up on the scene, so my proximity and access to these was a little bit easier than say like 1922 cinema. So I did have to narrow this one down a little bit, but again, I have a full list up on my Letterboxd and it's linked below if you want to go check it out. And if you don't know, which I didn't until a few weeks ago when I started this, Letterboxd is a website for you to log, rate, and review movies that you watch the same way you do it on Fable or Goodreads with books that you read. Follow me there if you dare. So first up, we have The Exorcist, 1973. Something about religious horror is just so intense to me, scares the shit out of me, which is weird because I'm an atheist, but that's probably the religious trauma talking, so, you know, maybe it's not weird after all. But all of that started, I fear, with The Exorcist. Well, it started with a passion play that I was dragged to with my Sunday school group one night, but we're not doing that now. Film-wise, it started with The Exorcist. Now, I remember watching this with my uncle, and I was pretty young, and I prayed the whole time because I was genuinely afraid for my soul. And I've always been a little dramatic, but Reagan scared the heck out of me.
Where's Reagan?
In here with us.
And as an actress, I mean, Linda Blair is an icon as a result of this film. So it's currently available to stream on HBO Max. May the Lord be with you. Next, we have Jaws, 1975. You gotta include it, right? The shark horror film that fuels my nightmares. I do not live near an ocean. My sister lives there now, so I go more often than I ever have before. But even when I go to the ocean, I don't go to the ocean. You know what I mean? I'm not getting in. I'd prefer to sit safely in my chair on the beach, sunscreened and reading, away from imminent danger. And I know that sharks are very misunderstood creatures and often demonized as being predators of the deep that are hungry for human flesh. And I understand that. But I also understand that they're apex predators that I respect. So have fun swimming. I'm going to be over here. You can stream Jaws on Netflix. There were a few other ones that I wanted to plug into the next spot, but this one had to be here. It's Carrie, 1976. A staple. A staple in the genre. I love the blood-soaked revenge plot following this awkward high school girl as she navigates bullying both from her peers at school and her religious loon of a mother at home. There's that religious horror again. The image of her at prom is seared into my mind forever, and to be honest, good for her. You can stream it on AMC+. Last but not least, definitely not least, we have John Carpenter's 1978 Halloween, which takes us for the first time to Haddonfield, Illinois, where we get to meet the likes of Dr. Loomis, Laurie Strode, and the iconic male romper wearing slasher villain Michael Myers. I actually recommend this one and the 2007 Rob Zombie directed one. Don't at me, I liked that too. Argue with your mother about it. They're both available to stream on AMC Plus and Shudder, but you can watch the 2007 one on Peacock and Tubi as well. Okay, we're in the 1980s. This is when I was born. I mean, it was later in the 80s. It's like almost the 90s, but this is my decade. This decade offers a lot to choose from, and I've actually watched a lot of them. From the demon-possessed doll in Child's Play, Chucky, to the rabid Saint Bernard and Cujo, or the killer clowns from outer space, which I've never seen. Let me know in the comments if that's a mistake. A fatal flaw in your eyes as far as my character development goes. But a lot of them don't have a spot in this video because while I watch them and I respect their spot and place in the genre, I don't like dolls or clowns at all, really. Even some of the more updated versions of similar tropes, clowns, dolls, like Art the Clown or Megan and Annabelle, I still find them a bit much, so I don't consider them mandatory viewing. Don't even get me started on Cujo. Like, if you want my full list, like I said, it's on Letterboxd and it's linked below, but for now, cuts had to be made. So let's start with the first one. Stanley Kubrick, The Shining. We have to start there. I don't make the rules. Actually, I do. There are so many great scenes and stills in this movie that are memorable and iconic, and that is something that I always appreciate in any genre of film. The Shining tells the story of Jack Torrance and his family. Jack takes a job as a caretaker at this massive hotel in the middle of nowhere. He brings his family with him, and things start to get weird pretty shortly after they arrive. It is spooky, it is unsettling, it is visually appealing to me, very twisty, and it is available to stream on HBO Max. Next, we have Friday the 13th from 1980. Happy Friday the 13th to all who celebrate. It's not Friday the 13th now, but we're talking about okay. I definitely celebrate. I actually remember in middle school inviting people over to my house for a sleepover so that we could watch these movies. I just thought it was like a really cool idea when I was like 12. And I still try to do it anytime a random Friday the 13th appears. And it's another classic franchise with an iconic, super recognizable villain, Jason Voorhees, with the hockey mask and the machete. Friday the 13th is a summer slasher that takes place at Camp Crystal Lake. Sounds peaceful, it's not. The camp counselors are being tormented by an unknown being that is roaming the woods and out for blood. The first one might be my favorite. I don't think the first one's my favorite. I think the second one is my favorite, but you have to start at the beginning. You can currently watch this on AMC Plus, Paramount Plus, and Shudder, and it's definitely worth a watch. Jason scared the shit out of me. Next, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984, and we have another classic horror villain entering the chat. This was directed by Wes Craven, so direct all your hate towards him for introducing us to Freddy Krueger, a scarred up phantom with knives for fingers who haunts, hunts, and kills the teens that live on Elm Street in their dreams. If they want to stay alive, they have to stay awake, which is a horrifying premise, especially for someone like me with insomnia and nightmares. But Freddy himself is just a terrifying image. I mean, look at him. No thanks. And while the first one in this series is also not my favorite, I think that honor goes to Nightmare on Elm Street 3, the one where they're in the hospitals. I'm not real sure. I need to watch them all again. But the original Nightmare on Elm Street is still a must-watch, and it's available to stream on HBO Max. Next up, I have a controversial pick, 1986's The Labyrinth. Now listen up. Okay, I'm not gonna do this. I'm aware that this is not technically a horror movie. However, it has horror elements, and it managed to not only frighten but entice me in a way that only David Bowie can. Plus, you're telling me that this scene with these fluffy, feathered orange puppets that have fun by singing and removing their own body parts and tossing them into the fire isn't horror?
We can do. Take off her head. Yeah.
It's horrifying. Please leave. So the story follows Sarah, a young girl who feels kind of overlooked in her world. One night, she is yet again tasked with the unenviable chore of watching her baby brother while her parents go out, and in her frustration, she calls out to the Goblin King to come and take this child far away from me. And he does. Which again, if this scene doesn't frighten you, are you a robot? This scared the shit out of me. Once he does take the child, she realizes the mistake she made and she heads off into the Goblin City to take back the child that he has stolen. And not only is this a delightful little fantasy adventure story with Jim Henson Muppets and Jennifer Connelly and this cute little bastard of a worm. He pops up just for a couple seconds, but he makes the whole film. And there's music and it's all great because it's David Bowie. But it's also one of my favorite movies. If I make a mandatory list for any genre, The Labyrinth will be in there. Fantasy, adventure, kids, musicals, Labyrinth. It checks all the boxes. And I have great news for you. You can stream it on Prime, Hulu, Peacock, Plex, Roku, and Tubi. So many options. Go watch it. Next, we have the 1987 bone-chilling story of Hellraiser. Bitch, shut the fuck up. We're talking about Hellraiser. Get in, loser. We're going to die. So this is based on the Clive Barker novel, The Hellbound Heart, which I've read. I also really enjoyed that. This story tells of an unassuming puzzle box that, once opened, unleashes literal hellions upon the person who opened it, aka Pinhead and his clique of hellish demons known as Cenobites, who want to torture you for the rest of forever. Now, Cenobites is dumb, I admit that. It sounds like a breakfast cereal. However, these are actual nightmare fuel people. The movie itself is a delightful blend of 80s effects and cheese. There's a lot of lasers. Not to mention the clothes, the shoulder pads alone. But my God, the practical effects, specifically in this scene here, this scene gave me vivid, terrifying nightmares for like weeks after I watched it for the first time. And it still does too. Every single time. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm brave. I have become braver than I was last year. So I'm going to watch it and I'm going to go to sleep. And I'm going to sleep like a baby, unbothered and unafraid. And no, Pinhead's always there. Pinhead is one of my favorite horror villains of all time. He scares me, period. And he can scare you too if you want to stream it. It's on Prime, AMC Plus, Shudder, and Tubi. I think all of the movies are fun in their own ways, but the first one just has a special place in my blackened heart. So I've got a few honorable mentions for the 80s. Poltergeist, The Thing, Gremlins, but there's a ton more. So if you want to go see my full list, the Letterboxd is linked below. Yes, bitch. Now it's time for my generation, the 90s. Yes! Truly, it was such a time. I know it's typical of millennials. Millennials just love talking about the 90s. It's because it was great. Sincerely sparks joy within me. I've been pretty much 26 ever since I was born, but brief moments of childhood delight and joy and glee were found in the 90s. So leave me alone. I have a ton of movies from this decade. A ton. Way more than all the previous ones. So some tough choices had to be made, but I'm still hopeful that some of these titles are going to be a good place for you to start with, so we'll go from there. So first up, we have the 1991 film The Silence of the Lambs. This is a crime thriller horror kind of thing where we first meet Dr. Hannibal Lecter, the disgraced but brilliant psychiatrist who's also a psychopathic cannibal who eats people, and the detective, the FBI agent Clarice Starling, who is tasked with cracking into his brain to try to find out some clues that might help lead her to another serial unaliver that she's trying to track down. Anthony Hopkins is a very chilling Hannibal. It should also be noted that my husband's choice as far as these movies go, his top recommendation for this franchise is Red Dragon from 2002, and I concur. But it would feel wrong not to start with the original. We got to start from the ground and we build our way up. I digress. Silence of the Lambs is available to stream on Prime and Red Dragon is available on Netflix. Everybody's happy. Next, we have one that might get some well actuallys, but I'd prefer it if you didn't. Please don't. We have 1993's Jurassic Park. I don't want to hear shit about how it's sci-fi. I know that. I'm aware. I am also aware that it scared me. I was 5 years old and I hid behind the gray recliner on the threadbare carpet in my living room whenever the T-Rex and the raptors were on the thing. The kitchen scene with the raptors, I'll be over here. Call me when it's over. This is the story of the revolutionary theme park where dinosaurs, actual living, breathing dinosaur animals, are the main event. However, things don't go very well for the first round of visitors, and boy, is it horrifying. Horrifying. Get it? You can stream it on TBS, TNT, and True TV. Next, we have The Craft. This is from 1996, and I'm going to tell you real quick, this was my entire personality as soon as I saw it in the $5 bin at my local Walmart. Grab it, keep the change, I'll be on my way. This is a witchy horror film that follows a group of 4 high school girls who may or may not also be witches. They be doing some witchy stuff. I have woven this film into the fabric of my personhood. It gets pretty dark. The casting is impeccable, and it's currently available to stream on MGM Plus and Peacock. Woohoo! Next, 1996 also brought me Scream. Now, I could write a dissertation on this movie, and probably the first 4 films, if I'm being honest. The first 3 films, if I'm being honest. These were another group of DVDs that I found in the $5 bin at my Walmart. My Walmart was hooking a bitch up. So because of this film and the franchise, we have Ghostface, and there are not enough thank yous in the world for me to give to you for that. Sidney Prescott, our main final girl, is being targeted by this masked, knife-wielding lunatic who is taunting her via cell phone and taking out her friends one by one. I have similar movies like this on the list. Obviously, I have I Know What You Did Last Summer and Urban Legend, but Scream will always be my favorite because it is the movie that made me go, oh, more of this, please, thanks. It was so good and I loved it and I still do. I still to this day, even though I can recite the entire script word for word, don't believe me? Okay.
Hello?
Why don't you want to talk to me?
Who is this?
You tell me your name, I'll tell you mine.
I don't think so.
What's that noise?
Popcorn.
You making popcorn?
Uh-huh.
I only eat popcorn at the movies.
Well, I'm getting ready to watch a video.
Really? What?
Oh, just some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
Halloween. You know, the one with the guy in the white mask who walks around and stalks babysitters?
Got so wrapped up in my method acting that I forgot to tell you that it's available to stream on HBO Max. Next up, we have The Blair Witch Project that came out in 1999. This is my first taste of found footage, and it absolutely terrified me. Blair Witch Project follows a group of amateur documentary filmmakers that head out into the woods with their little video cameras in order to find out some more information on the infamous Blair Witch that is said to haunt the woods. Eerie, unsettling, very dread-inducing. Like, I was just afraid the entire time. It was super scary for me specifically because I spent a lot of my childhood days playing in the woods. So, whew! It's available to stream on Peacock and Plex. Last but not least, there's so many that got cut. Literally, go to my letterbox if you want to see the rest. But the last one that I wanted to include on this list is the 1999 supernatural mystery horror, The Sixth Sense. This movie was different when I first saw it. I'd never seen anything like it. I remember being absolutely gagged over the ending. A therapist, played by Bruce Willis, is tasked and assigned to this young boy who claims he can see ghosts. The boy is played by Haley Joel Osment, who does an impeccable acting job. That kid could act. He claims he can see dead people, and boy, does he see some dead people. I saw him too. It was spooky. It was very gripping and just a roller coaster of emotions. Like I said, it was different than anything I'd ever seen at the time. It's currently available to stream on HBO Max. Okay, so now we enter into the 2000s. We've come into the 21st century, and I'm literally scared already at the things that we're going to encounter in here because some essential life-changing movies for me are going to be on this list. So I hope you're ready. The first one, and all the millennials will agree with me, is Final Destination, circa 2000. Are you fucking kidding me? This movie, dare I say, could be cited as the reason that 98% of people my age have generalized anxiety disorder. The plot is basically that death is going to come for you when it's your time, whether you cheated or not. But a few teens in the cast do actually manage to escape their fate, and death keeps coming for them in varying, horrifying, creative ways, if I do say so myself. This franchise in general is the reason that I hold my breath when I pass by a log truck on the interstate, the reason I'm afraid of roller coasters, flying, tanning beds. Like, several of my irrational fears stem from this whole thing. And sadly, I didn't see this available to stream anywhere, and honestly, it's probably for the best, because if you are already struggling with anxiety, we don't need to add anything more. Okay, the next one came out in 2001 and it's called 13 Ghosts. And I cannot adequately express to you how badly I want you to watch this. It is imperative. The way I used to watch this over and over again, it's so cheesy, but in like the best ways. And it has some genuinely unsettling, scary moments. Not to mention like really good lore to back up the plot. Like, I was so gripped the entire time. So this family recently lost their mother and wife, the matriarch of their family. So they're shattered by grief, but doing the best that they can. And then all of a sudden one day, this random, strange lawyer man shows up to tell the dad that he has inherited a house from some distant relative, which I'm gonna say I love that. I love when a random lawyer comes in. He's like, you have this house that you have to take care of, and I'm going, keys please, I'm going, I'm headed there now, I'm already packed, I'm in the car. But what kind of house did he leave him though? This is a great question. Spooky gothic haunted mansion? Not. This family was left this really bizarre, very modern looking glass house that is actually an entire machine. And it also doubles as holding cells for 13 very specific ghosts. And it is funny. I mean, Matthew Lillard is in it, so of course it's going to be funny. It's weird. It's scary. Like I said, it has this really cool lore that fuels the plot. Like, oh God, I love this movie so much. You've got to watch it. You have to. And sadly, I hate to report it, it's not appearing on any streaming services as far as I could see, which sucks because now I want to watch it. So I guess I will just have to buy the DVD like some kind of freaking chump. Okay, next we have 2002's Resident Evil, starring Mila Jovovich and Michelle Rodriguez, my one true love. She doesn't know that we're in love, but maybe one day she will. So fun fact about me and this movie, this was my first introduction into the Resident Evil franchise. For some reason, the video games just went right by me. They were never on my radar, which is a goddamn tragedy, if you ask me. So this movie was my first glimpse into the world of Umbrella, the sinister company that has these viruses that get out and turn people into zombie. It just, this is so fast paced. It was so scary. I thought it was an awesome blend of sci-fi and horror elements that just made for a truly terrifying movie-going experience. Mila Jovovich and Michelle Rodriguez were both hot and badass. So, I mean, what else is there to say, really? It was great. I also really love the video games, and it's available to stream on Prime, Paramount Plus, Pluto, and Tubi. Next up, we have The Ring, circa 2002. Now, The Ring is the American version of the original Japanese film called Ringu. Now, I haven't seen Ringu yet, but it is available to stream on AMC Plus, Shudder, and Tubi, so maybe I'll check it out finally. But the American version, The Ring, was so cool when I saw it. So The Ring tells the story of this cursed VHS videotape that will bring certain death to anyone who watches it in the form of a ghost girl crawling out from your television set and killing you 7 days after your initial viewing. It was so spooky and so chilling, and I really loved it. You can stream it on AMC Plus and Pluto. Also, toss in The Grudge. This came out in 2004. So The Grudge is the American version of the Japanese film Ju-on, which I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. But the Grudge story is set in Tokyo. It also has a supernatural curse element to it, and it's available to stream on Peacock. So I recommend that one too. It was pretty scary. I mean, I wanted The Ring on here, and The Grudge is like just second place, so I cut it, but I'm tossing it in here anyway. Next, we have The Descent. 2005. The Descent tells the story of this group of gal pals. They're on this little reunion vacation thing. They haven't seen each other in a while. They reunite to go explore some caves and end up getting trapped in one. And the trip does not go well. God, this movie is so tense, so fast, and it really struck fear in my heart, even though, full disclosure, I'm not into caves. I have never been into caves. I will never be into caves. I don't have any plans for that to ever change. But if one day I did ever think that I might have an inkling to be a person who explores caves, this movie would have ended that dream before it even began. I mean, I've been to Ruby Falls, and I'll never go again. Thank you, Descent. Don't invite me to go cave diving. The answer is no. And since The Descent is sadly not available on any streaming platforms, you can't even invite me to come watch it with you. Next, we have the 2006 film Silent Hill. Another film that got to me before the video games did somehow. Silent Hill is still a movie that scares me and creeps me the heck out every single time I watch it. So the story is basically a woman and her adopted daughter head to the town of Silent Hill, which is where the girl was originally born. They crash their car, the little girl runs off, and the mom is tasked with hunting her down in this very, very strange town that seems to come alive in a weird way and unveil its dark, terrifying secrets to her. Another fun fact for you. One year, I went to Halloween Horror Nights when they had a Silent Hill themed haunted house set up. I went in, and full disclosure, it's a miracle I didn't shit myself. I have a very vivid imagination as it is. Like I said, I'm very dramatic. When I'm in my house and I'm watching scary movies on the TV during the daylight, I have a hard time not getting too immersed. So to plop me down into a haunted house styled in the way where the nightmare fuel from one of my favorite scary movies is real and all around you. And in the case of Pyramid Head, reaching out for me, I give myself a gold star for making it out alive and mostly unscathed. You can stream it on Peacock. Now I really want to play the remastered game that just came out. I wish it wasn't $80. Okay, 2007 brought us Paranormal Activity. And while this isn't one of my favorite movies of all time, I do think it's important to watch if you're a fan of the genre, because this is a new take on found footage, because it follows a husband and wife as they set up cameras around their house to capture whatever it is that's been going bump in the night lately. And it really creeped me out when I first watched it. And a few of the scenes still give me chills whenever I rewatch it. So it's spooky and it's streamable on HBO Max. So next up, we have The Strangers that came out in 2008. This movie is the reason I have a husband. We went and saw this movie on our very first official date, and it was so scary, like legitimately scary, that I asked him to stay the night with me, and the rest is history. I mean, I wanted him to stay anyway, and I knew that I was actually afraid and living by myself next to a wooded area, So I was like, this will work out in two different ways. I won't have to sleep alone, and I'll get to sleep with a hottie. So yeah, 15 years later, here we are. This is a home invasion story that chilled me to my core, scared the shit out of me. And the way that it's done is genuinely so unsettling. It's so eerie and dread-inducing. You've got to give it a shot. You can stream it on HBO Max. Okay, so I have one more in this decade, and then I have an honorable mention that's a little weird, but just stay with me, okay? So we're just having fun. We're having fun. Jennifer's Body, 2009. Now, this is now highly revered, but I was here when it came out. I remember it not doing well, which is why I didn't watch it myself until a few years ago. And I thank God every day that I no longer go off word of mouth recommendations from people about movies and books, because you and I might not agree on things. And this was a good movie this whole time. Anyway, a hot cheerleader played by Megan Fox gets possessed by a demon, and it is truly fun. It's a fun little scary movie. And you can stream it on Hulu, Paramount Plus, Peacock, and Pluto. So a lot of movies got cut from this decade because I had almost 40 titles just for the 2000s alone, and we just don't have time for that. And I'm sure some of you are screaming at the screen right now, what about this one? What about that one? I know. I'm sorry. Maybe if you guys like this enough, then I will do videos that are dedicated to each specific decade, and we can just go all in. For now, I'm just going to wrap this decade up with a rather weird honorable mention, which is the 2008 film Repo, the Genetic Opera. As it says in the title, this is an opera, and it stars Paris Hilton, which also leads me to toss in House of Wax in here, which came out in 2005. Now, House of Wax was actually really good. I just saw that one for the first time a few days ago, and it was great. It follows a group of friends. They're on a road trip. They stop at camp in the woods. They meet some weird people. They end up in this strange town with weirdo residents, and it all starts falling apart. And it also stars Paris Hilton. How fun. I thought it was really good, but I didn't want to include it, and it's not available for streaming, so I didn't put it in my 2000s. I already had to make a lot of cuts for this. The other Paris Hilton movie, Repo, the Genetic Opera, is available to stream on Prime and Tubi. Now, what is Repo the Genetic Opera? That's a great question. I'd love to tell you. It's an opera. I know, crazy. And it tells the story through song of this mass epidemic of human organ failure in the year 2056. Wow, right around the corner. Thankfully, though, in the face of this terrible epidemic of human organ failure, there's this mega corporation called GeneCo that will assist you in getting surgery to replace your organs that are failing and help you with a payment plan. However, if you miss a payment, they will come take back their organs from you. Ha! High stakes. I thought a bad credit score was scary. Now, this is weird. Okay? I want to tell you that. And it, I fear, dances with the line between good weird and bad weird. And for most of you, for a lot of you, it might be the bad weird. I don't think my husband loves this film. He deals with me watching it every so often because he finds it amusing. He appreciates it, but it's not for him. But I'm a fan. But even as a fan, I'm not always in the mood for this. Like I said, it's an opera. So that means every single line of dialogue is delivered via song. Every single one. So it's pretty weird. It's not for everybody, but it is pretty dark, pretty gory. And the songs, if I do say so myself, are quite catchy, especially this one.
Zytrate comes in a little glass vial.
A little glass vial? A little glass vial?
Okay, moving along, we are going into the 2010s. Wow. I actually don't have a lot of movies from this decade, which might seem weird to you, but this is the decade that I noticed a direct link between the amount of horror movies I was consuming and the frequency and veracity of the nightmares that I was having. It also didn't help with the nightmare stuff because I was pregnant for almost the entirety of 2009 and then the entirety of 2010. And pregnancy really amps up the vividness of your dreams. So yes, I scaled way back on my horror film consumption during this time, but I do have a few for you. During the break though, I developed some systems. I either got my husband to watch them and screen them for me so that he could update me on how scary it was, or I'd play brain off games on my phone so that I could ground myself in this reality without getting swept up too much in that reality. Or both. I do both. Both is good. I also started not wasting my time and money on any horror movie that released. It only took me paying $15 to sit through the movie Insidious to realize, you know what? This just ain't for me. I'll wait until it comes out on video or direct to streaming. You know what wasn't a waste though? The first movie that I'm going to talk about in this decade, which is Sinister, circa 2012. My husband and I saw this in theaters and gave me full body chills. So creepy. So this story is about a family who moves into this house, and the dad of the family knows that the house has a pretty dark past, but he's a journalist. He's a writer. So he's after the story. He's going to get the scoop. And as he starts digging through the attic, he finds these old home movies from previous families that lived in the house. And as he starts watching, he's trying to piece together what exactly happened. And what transpires can only be described as sinister. You can stream it on HBO Max or Plex. Okay, next one is the 2014 sensation, The Babadook. I loved this movie. It's very unsettling, very creepy. A single mother and her young son are seemingly facing a monster in their house that seems to mirror the lines from a storybook that they read together. I got chills quite a few times when I watched it, honestly. There's a lot going on, and I'm actually anxious to watch it again and see if it holds up, but I think I love it. I think I can say that. I also really love that The Babadook is a queer icon, slay queen. You can stream it on AMC Plus, Netflix, Plex, Pluto, Shudder, and Roku. Okay, next up we have Hereditary, which came out in 2018. This is one of those movies that I don't ever feel compelled to watch again. I do think I want to watch it at least one more time because I feel like I missed some things and maybe some things will be revealed to me upon another viewing. But this was so dark and stressful and scary and twisty and weird, and I think it's something everyone should try at least once. Got to. Actually, I take it back. I do want to watch it. So this is an A24 studio movie where the basic premise is that in the face of grief, secrets are uncovered regarding this family's heritage and something dark is unleashed. I don't even know if that's an accurate description. This is another just weird one, hence me having a lot of questions and needing to go back and watch it again. It was really unsettling, scary. I think you should give it a shot. Stream it on Canopy. I don't know what Canopy is, but it was the only thing it was available on. Okay, next we have the 2019 film Midsummer. This is another A24 title, as beautifully shot as it is heavy and haunting. So this is a culty-like story about a group of anthropologist friends who travel to Sweden to study and take part of this like summer solstice festival, I think. During everything, it starts to get really dark. I feel like Midsummer reached icon status very quickly because of how scary and pretty it was. Like it had some really beautiful stills, and the balance between those two things only made the story more sinister in my opinion. I mean, this clip right here of Florence Pugh and her sad face encased in these bright, beautiful flowers is very recognizable, and it is creepy, so you should give it a shot. You can stream it on Canopy and HBO Max. So I got a few honorable mentions for the 2010s before we wrap it up. Things like Cabin in the Woods, Terrifier, A Quiet Place, The Conjuring. I liked these movies enough to put them on my list, but not enough to put them here because reasons. Like Cabin in the Woods, I remember being awed, but that was a while ago and I only saw it once, so I need to rewatch it before I can say like, you have to watch this movie. The Conjuring and A Quiet Place, they're pretty solid scary movies, but I could take them or leave them, honestly, so I'm not gonna like force them onto you. They're both good in their own ways. The Quiet Place was pretty intense, and The Conjuring is obviously spooky. Terrifier, I didn't include it for the same reason you didn't see Saw on my list. I don't like gore and gratuitous violence. I don't like clowns. I get it. I respect it. There are tons of people who love these movies, and I do think they're important for the genre, but this is my list, and they got the cut. Now, if this was my husband or my sister's list, they might be here, but alas, it's just me today. All right, the 2020s, almost present day. And even though we're only in 2024 right now, so not even halfway through the decade, I still had a couple that I've seen that are recent releases that I thought I would toss in here because I think they're really good. So first, we have Smile. This released in 2022. This is really freaking creepy, and I just watched it a couple of nights ago for the first time. There is an unseen entity that is causing people to take themselves out. And after a therapist witnesses this firsthand, she starts seeing some really weird things and experiencing things she can't quite explain. I recoiled a few times, jumped a few others. It was really scary. I know the sequel is coming out like in a few days, or maybe it's already out by the time. I don't know. I'm kind of behind on my work, but I know that the sequel is near. It's upon us. So maybe check that out. After you stream the first one, you can do that on Hulu or Paramount Plus. And last but not least, we have Longlegs. This came out this year, 2024. The subtle discomfort and dread that builds over the course of this movie was delectable. I love the way it was shot too. I love that it was set in the 90s. We never get that. And Nicolas Cage was creepy. Like, I don't really think he, in general, I generally find him kind of creepy in his own weird way, but he was really taking it to another level in this movie. He was really freaking weird. So this story follows an FBI agent as she works to piece together all these dark, occult clues to try and end a killing spree. Now, I was nervous to watch this because everyone was praising it, and I'd already been burned by Barbarian. Sorry, guys, it was only okay to me. But Longlegs was great, really great, and you can't stream it currently, but it is worth renting for sure. All right, so there you have it, my 36 horror movies that I consider must-watch films in the horror genre. Admittedly, there are a few that are missing from this list, and my master list that's on my letterbox. I mean, I can't possibly have watched all horror movies that have ever happened ever. But now that I'm rediscovering my love of horror movies, hopefully I can start making my way through my watch list. I have a lot over there that I plan on watching or have always wanted to watch. Things like Get Out, Us, Suspiria, It Follows, Black Phone, Bones and All. Those are all on my list. And I also have some from other decades that I've always wanted to watch. It's just, you know, time, energy, wherewithal, whatever. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Did I mention any of your favorites? Are there some movies that I missed and you feel personally victimized by their omission? Let me know in the comments. We can talk about it and keep chatting. Happy October. I hope you're having a great spooky season. Maybe you can pop one of these off of my list and check it out tonight to kind of just get in the vibes. If you do, come back here and let me know what you thought. It's always fun when I get to hear your reactions to things that I recommend for you. I love it. I can't get enough of that. Nice to be able to tell you stuff I like, send you out after them, and have you come back and be like, I loved it. Even if you didn't love it, it's fun to know how that fared with you and where we link up as far as our tastes go. It's just fun. If you like this video and want to support my work, you can join as a channel member, or you can check out my Bindery page or my Patreon. It really helps support the channel and keep me capable of making quality content for you. I really enjoy doing this. I'm having a lot of fun, and I appreciate you being here with me. Have a safe Halloween. I love you. You don't have to say it back, and I'll see you in the next one.